All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is Charlie Fighting Shotgun Charlie and Matt from Meet the Pressers. We are here at the SHOT Show 2025 live from Las Vegas.
Vegas, Nevada.
Vegas, baby.
Vegas, baby, Vegas.
Right. So we're doing some live shows here today. We hope you guys are all tuned in. We have with us John Petrolino, the Penn Patriot. This guy's resume, let me tell you what this guy's resume. He writes for Bearing Arms. He writes for Ammo Land. He writes for The Truth About Guns. He writes for Shooting Weekly, Shooting News Weekly. He's got his own blog. It's called The Square Reviews. Brutally honest reviews of products. And you're everywhere. We can't. I'm telling you, so we can't go one place without being like, "Oh, John Petrolino, I've read your stuff."
The interviews that we did with other people earlier, John.
It's awesome. I do overlap it. So let's be fair. Thank you so much, guys, for having me. And I love all the places that people get. I put most of my stuff out in Bearing Arms, and then when I can, I do as much like the other days. It's such a pleasure, and I get it. Content creators, instructors, the industry's wonderful. So it's just difficult to walk around and not find something, right? So that's the way I see it. So.
Yeah.
Agreed. You are definitely a force to be reckoned with in the writing industry. And hoping to see some stuff transpire last night.
If Zeke get in from the Gundies at midnight, we would have had some sort of a Gundy, article, but I had to get it into the Gundies, So
He's just tall.
Wow.
Yeah,
We don't want to picture that.
right. That reminds me of the other places you're right. Is News 280.
yeah, big shout out to newstrade.com and the project that's called the Infringement Report. And at the Infringement Report, we are tracking and getting together with applicants for the types of permits in New Jersey that are having issues with authorities and going beyond the statutory time limits, maybe doing some gains. We're interviewing people, we'll be getting evidence via all of the electronic submissions, because there's email chains to that. And, yep, not even on the FOIA, we get the emails right from the people, and we hit up the police department and say, hey, just looking for a comment about this, this is what's going on. Sometimes we get a response, sometimes we don't. We hit up the mayor and say, hey, just want to know what's going on. Sometimes we get a response, sometimes we don't. But with two of the reports that we did put out, one person was issued their paperwork within, I think, under 12 hours, and another person was issued their paperwork in over a business, like a weekend, so it's like a business day. So,
that category, when I called the court after the interview I did with George Campbell and published it back in 2019, I came up with a thing I called the 4 horses.
right.
But that fourth one is that jury of public opinion, and that's what it is. You guys are going out there, stirring up business, the business has to go back and saying, listen, get this stuff right, you're doing it wrong, stop messing with people's rights, and make it turn it around quick, because they don't want to listen to that.
Exactly, and then, this is part of the project is we're asking the questions. It's just the facts. It's all the facts, and the facts are on our side. This is what the law says. Can I get a comment? That's it, and then we go from there.
Oh wait, he knows some stuff.
We try to know some stuff, right? So that's one of the big projects at news2a.com. So I want everybody to get out there, subscribe to news2a.com. We've got some fantastic work. There's some great writers out there. Charlie also writes for news2a.com. And so check that out. I think that would be.
Yeah, those guys are great. So speaking of things that you've been talking about that are going on in the state of New Jersey.
Yeah, it's the New Jersey, not the New Jersey.
One of the things that you've been hammering home is some.
I mean, I don't want to sit here and say racism, but what we discovered is that there's a pattern that does not report issue. So get everybody up to speed. New Jersey was one of Bruin responses. So this was one of the states that had to respond to Bruin. So the day after Bruin's they removed our justified plea, which is akin to New York's proper consent. So all of a sudden, now the Supreme Court said the peasants shall have their pitchforks, and I love that. Yep, the peasants shall have their pitchforks, whether or not they like it, whether or not they agree. So they started issuing out permits. There was a Bruin response legislation. Of course, we're challenging that. But during all this was a good thing. So how does it get 200,000 carriers? They're releasing a dashboard, and the Attorney General is telling the issuing authorities that they need to collect this data and send it to the AG for them to aggregate. And so everybody knows the issuing authority in the state of New Jersey is going to be the local police chief, or it's going to be essentially a state police barracks, and by extension, it's the colonel of state police himself that's issuing that permit. So the colonel, hey, it's just it's got 11 spokes and somebody says, so once these you apply for your permit to carry, it's all electronic. Like now it is 100%. So they collect this data, and then they released this data last year around March of April. I'm looking at the information that they had, and what was missing was information on race. So I opened the Open Public Records Act, which is in New Jersey, and I said, hey, looking for this data on race, because it seems to be included in the dashboard. So they returned to me instructions on how to access it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the data is not there, but I will say myself and other people that are race farming did not frankly race, but armed with the knowledge that the Attorney General's office gave me, I was able to access the race data. So right off the bat, you're going to be finding that more than double the applicants who applied and denied. So 2 times more. And one of the conversations that you want to have, if you can have, and I think it's an important conversation as well, you have a higher level of incarceration of the black community, therefore you're going to have a higher level of disqualified persons in the black community. There's a couple of things we need to get out of the way first. Number one, so you should already have your firearms ID card, then you apply for your permit to carry. So if you, so you already have that, so you should already have a complete background. Second to that, okay, that's an important conversation that we can have about the issues in our criminal justice system. But we drill down further. There's a law, it's a statute, and it says that people may not get their permits issued. They're issuing authority and say, no, you don't get a permit if they believe it's not, quote unquote, within the interest of public health, safety, and welfare of the population, and the applicant doesn't have the proper temperament to own or carry a firearm. And this is what kind of statement is this? Shaking your head.
Crappy standard. It's the same standard as going to work. Remove from proper cause, with moral character.
Right. So what's good moral character?
Subjective to the person in the eyes of the beholder.
That's right. It's a subjective standard. So they're still using subjective standards in New Jersey. And what did Bruin teach us? Footnote number 9 says that standards need to be objective standards. Narrow, definite, objective standards that are definable. So we look at that standard. So now, of the permit to carry denials in the state across the board, more than double of them are actually a subjective standard. I don't like that, so I'm going to deny it. Looking at the black denial with the subjective standard, it's like 2.5 times more. And that data in, I'm going to say, September, last time I looked at it, it was actually like 2.6 times more blacks denied over whites. And I talked to some other people, some statisticians, and got some of their opinions and some other people behind the scenes. And they're finding that that rate is 4 times that of whites, and in certain counties, it's up to 30 times more.
And they've already gone through backwards. They're going to flip, right?
Yeah, firearm owners.
FOID card, it's a background check. It's kind of like in New York where you go and get your pistol license, and then you have to go and you get a background check for that. Then you have to go and get a background check for that again.
Yeah, like it's the firearms ID card, and then it's like, and that's for long guns. So it's funny that they make you get that to get your permit to carry, but I think they do it in stages so that you have your SBI number. That's a state bureau of identification number. So with that SBI number, then you just plug that in and get your permit to carry. It actually cuts out some of the red tape. I'm for that, but these are people that are already being said that they're a fit element of society. Right?
There are some states where if you have a carry permit, they skip the background check and still do the full 473. Occupied territory where I live, you have 2 background checks to get a license, and then you have to go through a background check every time. How many background checks does somebody have to go through to prove
So that's some of the data that we found there. And what did I do? I approached the Attorney General's office with this information because I found it. Can I get a comment from you on this? What I'm going to call racial disparity in the criminal system. And of course, they wrote me back and they said, so we set the clock, right? So the Attorney General's been notified. I reached out to his press office, and since I do open public records act requests and things like that, I sent out that email also to the Attorney General's account himself, right? So it goes directly to him and to his press office. So after that happened, set the clock. About a month later, I launched another open public records act request. And that records act request there was 2 of them. There was one asking about excessive delays. Why are we going past the X amount of time that they have to issue these permits? And the other one was if there was any guidance sent out to the issuing authorities in dealing with raising subjective standard, because subjective standard is illegal. So after I sent that out, the Attorney General said declines to comment.
Oh my God. The Attorney General.
Attorney General declines to comment.
We should get Trump.
Then again, I'd like to. So, all right, that's not cool. I'm tracking this further, following things. And then finally, there was, I sent out correspondence to Governor Murphy's. 3 of his press contacts 3 times via email looking for comment on this. No reply whatsoever. Sent a snail mail letter that was stuffed with the correspondence. Mailed it to Trenton to the Attorney General, to the Governor Phil Murphy, and I got no reply. So they're ignoring everything. I mean, they did it because when I wrote in. So there was a press release that came out. It's funny because this press release came out from the Attorney General with talking about looking into instances of racial bias in the medical field in New Jersey, and they go on the record saying there is racial bias, systemic racism, all this stuff. Like, cool, I'm going to play by your rules, and I'm going to ask you. And reached out to the Attorney General and get it, and I said, hey, I see that you're concerned about racial bias in the medical field. How come you're ignoring what looks like implicit racial bias concerning these firearm documents? And what do you think he said? Well, first, this is the first time they called me by name. They said, John, when you write the attorneys, only say us. Customers
Hold on a second. We have other people.
Hey, fellas, how you doing? Hey.
Oh, look at that. I don't know this.
Macro. Nice to meet you. Hey. We've got Garfield. I wish we had some cameras over there.
You're like hyenas in the tree.
I feel like a fish in an aquarium.
Yeah, for you guys who don't know out there, we've got people walking all over the place, looking at us, waving at us, honking at us. it's kind of neat. You feel like a fish.
I feel like I do. Maybe more like a man.
It would mean to you, you're reaching in heaven. I guess that's what Clinton kind of just did. Right?
Yeah, for sure. So the Attorney General's office wrote me back and said, when you look to us for comment, do not carbon copy. So they got tired of me including him in the correspondence. But the only reason I included him in the correspondence is you can't say he's not culpable. He knows about everything. They're notified that this stuff is going on. So since then, I have refrained from notifying him directly, but I'm going to say that if I have something really juicy, I'll maybe accident carbon copy.
Like, oops, sorry, I forgot it.
I know.
I mean, and I'm assuming they're also probably doing that because they don't want the Attorney General, one, being separate from it, but then also, if they ignore you and turn you off and say, oh, hey, yeah, I must have gotten lost in spam or something, they can kind of use that excuse as much as possible. They don't.
When I went to Philadelphia, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, to watch the preliminary injunction in Queens and Seaver, these are our sensitive police lawsuits, for lack of a better term, ruin response law lawsuits, and we're challenging all of that. Those are two cases. That was heard, I think it was October 25th, 2024. We still have not gotten an answer on the preliminary injunction. So we're still surfing on a preliminary injunction from the Federal District of New Jersey with a partial stay from the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. While I was there, reporting, sitting there, I did see the Attorney General. I went up and introduced myself to him. I gave him my business card. I said, hey, let's get together and have a cigar sometime. Let's hang out. He's like, oh, yeah, sure. I don't think he knew who I was.
He sanitize his hands after that.
He definitely knows who I am. I can tell you that, but he didn't know who I was then. Not by face, that's right. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching him in the gallery. I fell asleep while somebody else was defending the lawsuit. Yeah, this guy's already vegan. Yeah, not that I'm that young, but he's younger than me. He's not in his 80s, right? Exactly. So that's what's going on in New Jersey.
Yeah, it sounds like just as bad as me.
Oh, yeah, no, it is. So, what about you guys? What do you guys got?
And stay away for a shot. That's not a long night for the guns.
That was cool. I liked the numbers. What did you guys think about it? Because I didn't know what to expect. I think this is the first time they did that in a big auditorium.
The second time they did it, the second time, but this is the first time they opened it up to the public.
Right. I thought it was really good. I definitely wanted to check it out. I would do it again. My only reservation is it's the same time that the NSSF happy hour is. So, like, if you want to do that and that, you can't. Also, Arms Room Radio, good friends of ours.
Yes.
Good friends of ours. Mike Korowski from Arms Room, they do their thing, right? And he's been doing that for, he said, a decade. He said he's been doing it for 10 years. So I'm not going to talk about what he told me this morning. And
He told us last night.
what he told you last night. Well, I didn't see it. So
We went there at 6 to 7.
Okay, perfect. So I'm not going to tell his story, right? It's his story to tell. But I'm excited.
He's excited about it. He wants to.
Yes,
He wants to get people listening.
I like bratwurst. That's what his new one is. That's bratwurst.
Yeah,
Some schnitzel and some brats. I like that. Schnitzel and brats. Brats.
but the Gummies was really cool because it's this huge auditorium. It was probably 2/3 then. It wasn't jam-packed, but yeah, they could have pushed some people down a little bit further and maybe, organize that a little bit better. I wish apparently, did you know there was like an appetizer hour?
No.
Apparently there was appetizers, I guess. I heard that people.
Yeah,
right?
That's
Which, and they said there was like a 2-hour open bar. Or maybe this was for the finalists. I have no
Right, I think
idea
it was for
because I didn't get that
Must have
memo.
been really important.
It's like the $1 million rule. I never saw the money. The government must keep that. For sure. We have some comments. You reading the comment? Let's
Right.
jump in there.
Good afternoon. Thanks, still rough. them up that means that we're rough or he's had a rough night. I'll deal with that. Thanks, Brian, for making our day beautiful.
Well, the good news is, what are we doing? We're filming this and recording, right? So we have, for those of you, if you can't hear me, right? There'll be a crisp film and a crisp audio of this later in the presentation.
Thank you, John, for allowing us on your show. We will be back.
Yeah, next time. So I think we do have 3 guests coming. How are we fixed with that? We still have one.
Yeah, 7 minutes.
So I want you to talk about this. There was another story we had about a gentleman who was denied his Jersey permit because he was driving.
Yeah, so nonsense. So there was a guy, Latin guy, doesn't speak very good English. I'm not sure if it has anything to do with the story, but what it does have to do with in the story is reading his communications with the issuing court. I was getting frustrated for the situation because he's trying to communicate with them, and also I think that the officer, that's the permitting officer, wasn't necessarily consistent. So he's applying for his permit to carry, and he's already got his firearms ID card, so he's good through all of that. He's passed the background check, bought guns, passed the background check. Got pistol purchaser permits, multiple ones. You need a permit for everything that you buy. Background check before you get the permit. Background check when you buy the firearm.
Each with time and money.
Each with time and money. Because New Jersey's a clean contact state. So we have our own special mix system that costs money. Somehow everybody else can get their stuff done for free, but not in New Jersey. So you get whacked with fees left and right. So Leonard goes to apply for a permit to carry. They end up denying him for interest in public health, safety, and welfare. And the actual denial email, the very first one that he got, because I read it, it said because he was driving them, and he had some non-criminal issues while he was driving, and he was a CDL holder. I think he did end up losing his commercial driver's license, but we're not talking about a criminal matter. What we're talking about is something that has nothing to do with this car tires to carry.
Even if it was 19 feet of federal laws.
So that email actually said he applies again, he gets denied again. This time it only said interest in public health, safety, welfare. It doesn't say anything about his driving record. But the permitting officer's asking him, did you get your driving record expunged? Wait a minute, how do you get your driving license? It's not a criminal matter, there's nothing to expunge. So, because he was applying to be an armored car driver, it was very specific thing in New Jersey law. You can apply to a state police barracks. So he applies to the state police barracks specifically for a work-only armored car driver permit to carry. If he gets that thing issued, I want to say under a month. And it's signed by the colonel of state police. His little digital signature, but it's his stamp on it, right? So he then goes and he's talking to them about his issues. Because now he can't carry as a civilian. And they said, well, since we issued you your permit to carry as an armored car driver, we can also issue your permit to carry as a civilian. So submit again. Submits again. I think a couple of weeks later, he's paying his email. He's got his permit to carry, issued by the colonel of state police. Subsequent to this, and you know this portion of the story, I haven't included that. He applied for additional permits for purchase in his town. Now the issuing officer there is asking him questions. Well, I see that your driving record somehow it did actually disappear, which is awesome because I'm all for that. He's like, did you get an expunged this, that? Who did you talk to at the state? How did you get your permit to carry? Questions like that. I want to talk to whoever's at the state police barracks that issued you your permit. This guy's trying to scuttle this dude's existing permit or whatever he's trying to do. So I'm actually going to be continuing to follow up with this. And Officer Wong from the Homestead Police Department I'm going to be talking to you, or I'm going to be talking to your boss. So, absolutely. This is going to be something that I'm going to cover in the infringement report because I've already started a draft article on Leonard and his story, his beginning of the story over there. And I covered this at Bearing War. Now I'm going to cover a small, condensed, shorter version. But wait, there's more, right? So we have this extra information. And this is all over interest of public health, safety, and welfare. I'm not going to say it's a race-based thing, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Subjectively, not differently doing like drivers. Somebody goes getting a driver's license and has to have a right? I mean, it should be. And if you have a driver's license, I mean, one's a privilege, one's a right. Right? You should be able to have the right to defend yourself. I think that's a good.
Let me just
One more.
you can find me at thepenpatriot.com. If you have news tips for me, I want to hear from you. John at thepenpatriot.com. And if you need any other information from me, you get news tips, whatever you want, just email me, thepenpatriot.com. I think that's the best way to do it.
Awesome.
Like, subscribe, and tag.
Click that little bell.
Hit the notification bell.
All right, we are going to be back in Uno Momento with Amanda Suffecool, who's an NRA Board of Directors member, and her brother Rob Campbell. They are from High on the Target Radio. We will be right back with them.
I feel like this.
Yep, not one more.
Yep.
All right. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys. Later.
Thanks, John. Good luck, man.
Oh, look, we're back.
Oh. Hey now.
That audio was not good. You guys be doing a live?
Yes.
What, you want me to record the live? A couple more.
All right. We're good. We're back. Hi. We're back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome back. Running second and Charlie Meet the Pressure. We have Amanda Suffecool, who is a NRA Board of Directors member. And let's see. I don't know if you have enough time to go through the list, just like with Petrolino. She's on the Women for Gun Rights. She's got Realized Firearms Safety Education Awareness. Realized Firearms Awareness.
Realized Firearms Awareness.
And you guys are, you and your brother, Bob Campbell here, are.
My beautiful sidekick who has been watching. Okay.
Just gotta go.
This happens to
This happens to a lot because
I
you
love it when radio is like yelled across the room, and she says that's not a thing. But I like it when you hear somebody in there rustling around trying to do something, and he doesn't have nothing like that.
Right, that's you.
He thinks it sounds good, and I'm like, no, it's not happening in my show. It may happen in Charlie's show, but it is not happening in my show.
Thanks. You know, I'm right here.
I'm
You
just
know, I'm
saying,
right here.
I'm just saying, since you are allowing it to happen in Charlie's show,
It's like we're singing a duet.
there you go.
Right, we're gonna.
Okay. So you called us here for some reason.
Yeah, so we want to have you guys talk about all the stuff that you guys are doing. Particularly talk about NRA stuff that's going on. You've been to the meetings. They've gotten rid of the SLC. They're making some changes. There are 28 reformers on the ballot this time.
Wow, you've done your homework.
Well, I might not know how to work audio equipment, but I can do some homework.
Do you know what the website is for
A new NRA.com.
Elect.
Elect a new NRA.com. So close. Yes, so
Right. It wouldn't have gotten
No.
yes. No, okay, so let's talk about it a little bit. So what has happened was for a while and everything that I say is opinion based on different board members' opinions. There is not an official stance of the NRA because I as a board member, just cannot speak for the NRA, right? So there's that. Just to let you know. But okay, so a couple years ago, I ran for the board of directors of the NRA, and it's pretty funny because if you go back and watch some of the videos of the members meeting, I was in effect told, what do you know? And it's like nothing in my background and pedigree seemed to matter to some of the folks, and they were wrong. We'll just put it that they were wrong. And so what's been happening since is that every election elections have consequences. And so last year there were 4 reformers who joined the board, and that kind of started this groundswell. I've been elected the year before. There were others who've been elected with the idea that they were going to be involved and save the NRA and make changes. And what happens is if you tie a string around the entire board and one guy runs in one direction and everybody else stays stationary, how far do you go? Right? And so that's what was happening. So a new person would come in and they bounce off the wall for a while and not get anything. Well, then now there's 2 people, there's 4 people. Now there's 16 people. So all of a sudden now 16 people bounce off the wall. The whole group kind of goes and moves a little bit, right? And so we've seen some movement. So it's now at a spot where this next election is either going to give them the opportunity to kind of dig into the heels, or it is going to elect change agents to where then there's the majority of things and moves a lot. And that's a very good point. And that is what is it. And so that's where this electedNewNRA.com is so critical, is go in with your bios, because there's some people with some pretty amazing backgrounds who decided that they want to get involved and help, save it, fight for it, and do that. And but even now, reformers will change. I like change agents better, right? That group has been not allowing the board meetings to be like check, see ya, we're going to meet you tomorrow, we're done. We are duking it out every single thing. So board meetings are taking elastic 15 and a half hours at a run. Yeah, you get a bathroom break. Here's lunch, but because the other part is that if you leave the room when they've not taken a break, they become a vote. You're not there for it, right? So you are engaged and engaged hard, and so there has been a lot of things that have been took out, thought over, and you can read about them and read about what happened and what matters. And there's a website called NRA Engage, and it starts to line it out. And so does there's a blog called No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money, and it will kind of. But if you're just starting to read it from the middle of the book, you have no idea who the players are. You have no idea who the characters are. You're sitting there going, I need a scorecard. And so there's just a lot of moving pieces to it. But let's just say that I am very positive about it, very optimistic about it, and I definitely think that we're in a great place to make the changes so that the NRA can exist in another 150 years after the 150 people have been already spent.
So 1871 founded in New York State, so I love the NRA. And being a member too, a training counselor, and sort of running some local country. Heavily vested in the training side of it.
And it can't go away. There's just so much that it's done.
It's got that namesake known in the industry.
Well, to just the general folks who are 2A savvy. And they're like, well, there's these other organizations who are doing a better job than right? And I'm going to say yes and no. And the yes is they are in their little slice, tiny little slice of the pie. And so the NRA's budget runs between $200 and $300 million. That's how much stuff the NRA is doing, right? The other smaller organizations that we put our saying, well, this is an organization around us, their budgets are running in the 8 to 10 million. So the thing is that, yeah, the NRA may not be doing exactly what they want to best little slice, but they're doing all this other stuff that they're not using. So I'm not telling you to not support the guy. I'm saying support the guys. Because the little guy needs the big guy. They need, I talked to Eric Scott one time a couple years ago. He's like, you need the NRA. So Eric Scott is governor. And he's like, you need the NRA because when it gets ugly, they're taking shots at the big elephant in the room. And then the other groups can cry on their feet and dance around. But if all of that firepower went aimed at one of the little guys, they wouldn't survive the attack.
Yeah, the NRA, I mean, when anti-gun folks talk about pro-gun lobby, it's always the NRA. They never want to go after us. They never want to go after us. All they know is the NRA. And the NRA has become such, it's just, it's not even that. It's an acronym for anyone that's a gun person.
Right.
And I remember for me, I talked to one of my college roommates after I started running shotgun. He's like, dude, I love what you're doing with the NRA. I'm like, I'm like, teaching classes. That's it. You know? Yeah. So there's no.
But to them, it really is. Well, it is. The NRA is the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is the NRA. Yeah. And I don't think that mindset is overly wrong. It's not. It's not as big and open as we.
It's right. I mean, there's what? We hear all the stats. There's 100 million gun owners and 40 million NRA. Like, there's a lot of
but
a lot of this too is that they go by family. You got a family, so one guy belongs to the NRA, everybody in the family says the NRA now, whether they send their $35 for membership. So it's guilt by attrition or whatever.
Well, yeah, but I think you're right on that, Bob. And I think that the other piece is that if you do a survey of people, there's a lot more people who believe that they are members of the NRA than are actually members. So they're mental members, they're just not dues paying.
They vote with the NRA.
They vote.
They claim with the NRA. They just don't pay the
Charlie, when you're actually using Charlie's clients, that way you guys are.
Right, I mean, that's the thing. So they vote with the NRA, and whatever the NRA says on the TV, they believe it 100%. They just don't send their
Yeah, so they're electronic members, in their heart, they're members, virtual members.
And,
I have an NRA membership number that's super old, and no one ever has to see it, so it doesn't really matter.
I do love the story where you say that they asked you for your number, and here you go.
They went somewhere one time and they asked for our NRA number, and I gave them my original number, the CLK018W, and they were like, "That's not a number." And the guy was, "Yeah, that's just a really old number."
So it's like, yeah, that's not me.
But I mean, now that I get my training credentials, and they give me a modern, updated number, but I just use the old one because I've had it since like 1968.
You guys are like an analogy that I came up with earlier. You were the circles, your rings, right? That came up earlier with anyway, it's like doing a repair on your house. And you take down the sheetrock. This wall needs repair. I got to replace this stud and that stud. I really want to take the whole house to the ground and rebuild it. I just need to fix this little area for this wall. You guys need, and I was saying, that stud, this stud. Some people in the NRA, instead of getting the whole NRA.
You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And frankly, if you look at what's happening in the NRA, there's there's a couple things. And one of them is that when New York started to sue the NRA canceled their relationship with Weidner. And so the NRA then officially stopped marketing the NRA in 2018. And so there was no overarching NRA marketing for the membership, for the membership agreement and all that. It just didn't happen.
The momentum kind of stopped.
So tell me the last time you thought about Paris Hilton.
I don't know.
Okay.
Another thing about the NRA is for centuries now we've been compromised. I mean, it's always like we know something's coming. We'll take the least brutal of the beating from it, and so we really didn't get any ground until the '94 crime bill went away, and it's new to us that we're winning actually. And so we were so used to taking that beating that the NRA thinks differently than other things. You watch Pratt and these guys they're constantly forward, they're fighting, they're winning, and they're making good headway. The NRA, they too are backing a lot of bills, and I mean, they backed Bullen with almost 100%.
100%.
So there's a lot of stuff that they're doing. It's just we're so used to giving something and we take something, and I think that mindset is changing now slowly, but it's surely.
And I think that the piece about it changing and how it's changing is that the GDP of the NRA is a Marine. So he's not a lawyer. And so he's working off of is are we looking? Okay, so he's a Marine, you know, and Wayne wasn't a Marine. So there's a whole difference there that is gonna reflect hard with the NRA. But back to my Paris Hilton analogy, if you look at it, 5 years ago, Paris Hilton was on every radio show. She was on every TV. She was on the news. She was on
everywhere.
She was on The View. She was everywhere, right?
Yep.
And then she fell in love, got married. I don't know what she did, but she did something, and she stopped marketing herself.
Right.
And she disappeared. And so when she disappeared, we didn't not know that she exists. We just didn't think about her. And we haven't thought about her in years. And just recently something new came out, and she came up, and all of a sudden, all of the marketing that they'd done in the past still is in your head.
Yeah.
And as soon as you hear her name, you're like, oh, well, remember this show and remember that and remember this. So the NRA is kind of in that same boat. Right now they're starting to pick up the marketing again to change that. But the court case for New York is over. Mm-hmm. So Letitia James did not get what she wanted. And what she wanted was to defund the NRA, to tear it apart, and to take all of the money that the NRA had that they were fighting for gun rights and to give it to other gun safety organizations. And those gun safety organizations would have been Bloomberg. They would have been demanding mommies.
Yeah,
they would have been
safety organizations.
air quotes, gun safety organizations. And so that piece is not happening now.
Good.
So the NRA is now ready to, you know, everything's all ready to go. And so people are starting to pick up the pieces again where they couldn't before because their job before was to be a shield and to stop incoming fire. And now all of a sudden they can put their shields down and actually start running in the directions that they need to run.
Do you think with Trump being in office, it's going to be more proactive? Like, because this is one of the things, the pro-gun folks have always been on the defense about things. Is there a possibility that we're going to be now a little more proactive in getting things done?
Well, I think that there's a lot of people who are going to push for national reciprocity.
Mm-hmm.
So they're either in its entirety, so there's just a singular, okay, everybody can do it, or some kind of reciprocity from state to state that your permit works like your driver's license. So I think that there's going to be that. I have to say, though, for gun owners, there's a lot. There's those of us who are just solid, you know, we're going to fight, we're going to stand, we're going to pay our dues, we're going to train people, we're going to be involved. Mm-hmm. And then there's people who are like, I'm not scared, so we're all good. And as soon as I get scared, then I'll give them money and I'll join the club and I'll do things. And then, I mean, there's people who are like, okay, my neighborhood's safe now, so I'll sell my guns.
Right.
And then a month later or a year later or 5 years later, somebody gets hurt or attacked or something. And then all of a sudden the community then buys guns again. And it's like very reactive, not proactive.
It's that proverbial insurance. You don't really need it. You know, you don't need it until you need it kind of thing. So if you don't really need the insurance, you don't see it right in your face, then you're not going to get it. But then, you know, a hurricane happens or, you know, the fires in California happens. You're like, oh, shoot, I probably should get that insurance. I've been putting off, you know, that mindset.
There's a lot to that. And so I think that guns and gun ownership and gun rights are one of those to where I think what I've heard is that people don't react to happy news. They react much more to news that scares them. Yeah. So
shock and awe.
Rob had made a point that most people do not know is that the NRA funded the Bruin lawsuit in its entirety with the group, the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association. So when they're like, well, where was the NRA? Well, that was a big, they were behind something that was absolutely phenomenal and instrumental to us. And currently the Bruin lawsuit has been cited through 1,600 court cases that have made their way through the court and through decisions. 1,600.
Wow.
And then there's all the other ones that are still not in a decision-making phase yet.
Something else real quick to think about. It took 7 years for that Bruin decision to happen. 7 years.
13 for Heller.
Right. 13 for Heller, 7 years for Bruin. I mean, all those years, courts going through courts, that's a lot of money and time.
2 for McDonald. Right. So at minimum, it's from the last court to the Supreme Court's $1 million. Yeah. But it's like, whose money? How is it? Exactly. And how do you get there? And where are the steps? And what is the strategy?
And I think, and to that point, it has to be a solid case. Otherwise, it's going to get thrown out in some way by a judge. Like, oh, this doesn't pass muster. So it's got to be organizations like. Well,
look at Rahimi. I mean, Rahimi was one of those where there's some groups that were saying, okay, we don't want Rahimi to be the case. Yeah. We'd like something else, and it was the one who made its way up to the courts. Yeah. But there were some good nuggets that came out of there, but most people aren't covering the good nuggets that came out of Rahimi.
Right.
So I think it's very positive that the Supreme Court is willing to hear gun cases and that there's a couple more coming on their docket. So June is going to once again be really spicy as we're all watching what happens.
And as of Monday, things are going in a good direction.
As of Monday, there's that. As of Monday, the presidential platform is not anti-gun. Yep. Let's just put it that way. I mean, Donald Trump is not the most pro-gun president we've ever had, but I think he's more gun neutral, and I think that he wasn't raised in a gun community.
He wasn't right in New York City.
Right. It just wasn't in his makeup.
Yeah, his bringing up upbringing.
And so
yeah, but he's best we got.
He's
best we've had in a little bit too.
Right. And he's way better than what we had. And then when you look at J.D. Vance, and now J.D. Vance,
brought up around
the Second Amendment is in his DNA. Yeah. Did you see the speech that he gave at the RNC about why his mama, when she died, had X number of guns spread out all over the house?
19 guns all around the house?
19 guns, because she wasn't mobile. And so it was just easier to buy another gun and put it someplace else so that you could get to it quicker.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah. That's how they do it down south.
It's Ohio, man. It's not down
south. It's
not
really south.
South of New York.
We're a little.
Barely.
Okay.
Barely.
Sorry, guys. This is Matt Mallory. Right. Geometry is not. Wait, geography.
Geography.
It's geometry. It's geometry that he's better at, not geography, right?
Oh my God, that's awesome.
That's right. I forgot he was Ohio. I was thinking he was Florida or something.
Rob had an intern that worked with him one time, and he was like, "Hey, kid, you were such a mathlete, right?" And so I'm just gonna say I'll have to come up with something about map.
Yeah,
you're right. Something.
Right. Somebody asked, "Listen, could you use geometry in a sentence?" And they said, "Yeah." Somebody planted an acorn. It grew up and said, "Gee, I'm a tree."
But
I'll be here all week.
Okay. That's dad jokes.
Right.
Those are great jokes. Dad jokes are great jokes. Looks like the audio is a lot better, by the way.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Glad to hear
So,
that.
so what do we want to? What do we got now? What do you want to talk about?
8 minutes left. All right.
Okay.
So NRA board, a slew of people support the NRA. Get involved with all the organizations out there that are helping fight back these
The
gun laws.
website elect a new
NRA.com. ElectanewNRA.com.
What I'm gonna give my headset to Rob here because I want Rob to talk about this. But you, I listen to the show all the time. You guys have eyeonthetargetradio.com. Oh, here you go. One of the things you like to talk about, Rob, is how you think the NFA is going to be stripped. Like they're not going to get rid of it. They're just going to get rid of everything in it, and there's going to be nothing.
If they try to get rid of it, the media will fire up and they'll go crazy over that. But they could take all of the penalties out of it. It'll still be there as an empty box, and nothing will be there. But the NFA will still stand. It's just there's nothing left to pester anybody. But there's a couple of different groups that you got to look at in this. I mean, the guys who buy collectible machine guns, they don't want to see the NFA go away because that'll cut into the price of their investments. The blue city managers, they don't want to see the NFA go away because they don't want these Glock switches and that to be legal in their communities. And so there's still a fight in our hands, but I think it is something that is going away. I think Bruin's going to take that from us.
Yeah, I'm being current law enforcement and doing road patrol. It's always a concern. The two most dangerous things we do is walking up to a car in a traffic stop and going to a domestic violence call. So that is a concern, but then at some point we can't just put all this government in place saying, the government's can protect you, because we all know that government, it doesn't protect you. And even law enforcement, we're the cleanup crew. We come in after everything happens. So
right.
it's a cart before the horse.
And it's the machine gun, if you've ever been with one, it's not as dangerous as you would expect. I mean, watch some of these 10-year-olds at the 3-gun matches with their Benelli. Mm-hmm. They got a way better handle on it than the average person with an MP5.
Right. Yeah. But go ahead, Charlie.
No, for sure. I mean, you can teach young people how to shoot, and machine guns is just something else, and they're fun to shoot. Expensive, but fun to shoot.
Not very accurate, so it's not like something somebody's usually going to use for.
Right, you're not doing any bullseye. Right.
But there we go. Bullseye
machine gun.
Machine gun.
Some of what works for the military with the machine gun is that everybody has one. So now you have this field of bullets that are flying around everywhere.
Suppressive fire.
Right. So it isn't necessarily one accurate guy. It's just a massive wall of lead that's flying around, and you don't want to be out there
for sure. And as a civilian thing, you never want that for safety wise. You want to hit what you're aiming at.
So, right. Of course.
But like I say, the shotgun is a king. Even if you can't buy a machine gun, shotgun's still the winner.
Nice little pellets. Nine little pellets flying in your direction.
Nice. All right, so radio show. You guys, first of all, you guys have been coming to SHOT Show since the 1900s, right?
She's like, I'm out of here.
I'm not. We're not talking about anyone's age. I'm saying you guys have been coming here since you were 7, right?
We've been coming since about 2004, somewhere right in there.
So 20 years.
21 years. That's great. And
the first couple of times we came, we stayed in some dumpster off the strip.
And shady hotel.
We lived out of our pocket with tuna fish and crackers, but things have gotten better for us over the years.
Right. Well, now you guys have a spot on Radio Row, which is fabulous. How long have you been there? 4 years?
Trying to remember.
We were trying to think of that the other day, and it's got to be 4 or 5 years because I don't know. A couple of years ago, they put us on the floor here, and then they put us back out on the strip again.
It was 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was in 22. They
right after COVID.
There were a lot less people coming. Yeah, right after COVID. Right. So they had a big spot on the main floor,
which I like that. That was kind of nice because everybody was looking at it.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of having to walk down the hallway.
We were here. We were on Radio Row just a year or two before that particular time, but we did like the floor. Like you say, everybody's watching you. They're sitting in tables and watching the show going on as you were doing your stuff.
Right. So it's my turn to change because I haven't done it yet. So I'm going to ask a question, hand it off to you guys, and then answer it. Right. What was the show like back then, 29,000 years ago?
And, where was it? Because I know it wasn't always here. It's been here for the majority, but I think it was Florida, and it jumped around kind of like some other shows. So I'll let you guys answer that.
We've only ever been here and Florida, so I don't know exactly when they started here, but Florida was really nice in the fact that it's a completely different venue, and it was funny because down there they took us to the range there, and since Florida is completely flat, they had pushed up this mountain of dirt, and they shot at both sides of this mountain
shot
of
at
dirt.
each other.
Whoa.
Kind of.
So it was a police range that they used, but there was this mound of dirt that was big enough that they could drive trucks on the top of it, but there was ranges on each side of it, and that's what they used as a backstop. But
And I think for us, the dynamic changed when we got picked up for radio, and we started doing that in 2010, and then we got picked up national for it in 2018. And so before that, we would just come walk the show, and I have to say that the difference for me is the dynamic of now we know people. I mean, you'll walk through and people stop you and you talk to them, and
It's not that you know people; they know you.
maybe it's a little bit of both, but I know people,
Of course.
but for years it was just we would walk through, look at product, talk to somebody, and then we were like, we've got a little gun shop in Ohio, and they're like, yeah, we hear that from everybody, right? And so it just was it was just a shift in dynamic when we started to go.
I think our first couple of years here, we knew the lady that ran EMF, and we knew our sales reps from some of the shops, but that was about the extent of the people that we actually knew on the floor.
Right.
I mean, some of them, it's like, oh, we've seen them or we've read their stuff, but we don't know who they were or anything.
Yeah, so it really has changed, and I think the thing about the show floor now is you see a lot more, and maybe I wasn't looking before, but I think the podcasters have changed the dynamic, and so you see a lot more people crossing over, talking to people.
Well, also,
videos, writers.
women were not early on. The women were not in this as much. So you look now, and there's a huge contingent of women that are coming through, working not just the gun bunnies that are trying to sell you stuff, but they're actually they're in charge of marketing and
right.
stuff. And so there's a big change there, and you get to meet some of these ladies that have been. They started right out of high school at a local company or something. We were talking to one this morning. Started right out of high school. She's now she does remote work for them, but
right.
it was she's been 21 years or something with the same company.
So it used to be that you'd walk down through, and I have to say that it's shifted a lot. But I would ask a question at one of the gun shops or one of the gun booths, and they would answer him.
Right, they wouldn't come back to her.
So they would turn, and I would ask the question, and then they'd look to the guy and answer the guy. That has stopped. That is absolutely the industry has woken up to the fact that women are the fastest growing demographic, and they're knowledgeable, and they treat them as such. And so it's good. And so things are looking very positive in the Second Amendment world.
So it's funny you say that, and that we're sitting here in the booth of Otis, who is out of New York, upstate New York, and sponsored the show and letting us use the booth here. The founder of the company, she was like 16 when she started the company.
Oh, that's right. I watched one of the videos.
Yeah.
Her dad, she had to have her dad do stuff because they weren't going to take her serious.
Yeah, they wouldn't take her. What are you talking about, a little lady? And
right.
Yeah, so it was her. I think her dad had opened up the loan line of credit for her. It was pretty interesting.
Wild.
Yeah,
pretty wild.
It is super. Well, it's always awesome to have you guys. I always love hanging out with you, and Vegas. It's draining, but it's awesome. We do this for all you guys out there. So. Yeah.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for being on. Everybody can find you guys at eyeonthetargetradio.com.
Yep.
And elect a new NRA.com. There we go. So that's where you can find. And we're encouraging people to vote for the 28 reform candidates. No bullet voting, just vote for these 28 candidates so we can get some reformers on there, make the positive changes that we need in the NRA. We are going to be doing some other shows tomorrow, Wednesday, and on Thursday. Tomorrow we have scheduled Neil Weidner and John Correia from Active Self-Protection, and we have Zeke Stout after that. On Thursday we have Ken Campbell from Gunsite, and we have John Crump scheduled as well. He's one of the media guys that's cranking out a lot of materials and doing a lot of great stories. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to Meet the Prezzers or Riding Shotgun, please make sure you do. Hit the notification bell. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Be safe.